I've lived in Wilkes Ferry, Alabama for all my life, and I don't think I've missed more than 5 Sundays at First Baptist in the last 47 years. The steeple's a little crooked now, and the choir's gotten smaller, but we still shake hands at the door, still pass the same wicker offering plate, and still eat too much banana pudding after service. My wife, Lorna, and I have been pew sitters in the third row on the right since 1982. Folks around here always joke that if you walked into church blindfolded, you could tell who was missing just by looking at the empty seats. And lately? Ours has been missing one. At first, Lorna said she was tired. Said she didn't sleep well the night before and wanted to rest while I went on ahead. I didn't think too much of it. We're both well into our 60s, aches and fatigue are just part of the deal. But it kept happening. One Sunday turned into 2, then 3, then most of a month. I've just been going to the women's Bible study over at Jeannie Culp's place, she told me one morning while she pulled muffins out of the oven like nothing had changed. We get deeper into the word there. Less distraction. She said it with that same soft tone she always used, the one that made it hard to argue without sounding like a villain. But something in the way she said it didn't sit right. Like she was hiding behind scripture. Like she wanted me to stop asking. I didn't push. Not then. Maybe I should've. Instead, I just nodded and poured my coffee. The house was quiet that morning. Too quiet. No radio humming in the kitchen. No sound of Lorna folding clothes while humming old hymns. Just the clink of ceramic and the ticking wall clock. Funny how you notice what's missing after it's been gone a while. Lorna and I had our routines. We always had. Sunday mornings were for church. Sunday evenings were for chicken casserole and Wheel of Fortune. Mondays, I'd drive over to Clem's feed-in seed for lawn supplies or to shoot the breeze with other retirees. Wednesdays, she'd meet with the church quilting circle. Saturdays, we'd do laundry together. I never thought twice about any of it until the day I noticed she'd stopped folding my undershirts the way she used to. Now, that might sound like nothing to you, but Lorna had a system. She'd been folding them the same exact way for 20 years, sleeves tucked in, bottom up once, then rolled tight like a little towel. Neat, tidy, military almost. She said it was to save drawer space. But 3 weeks ago, I opened my drawer and found them folded all wrong. Just in half, messy. Like she didn't care. The next week, same thing. And it wasn't just that. She stopped making the bed on my side. Stopped asking if I wanted anything when she made herself tea. Small things. But they add up. Marriage, I've learned, is 1,000 tiny habits. When those habits change, something big is shifting underneath. Then came the knitting bag. Lorna had always been a knitter. Scarves, blankets, even little booties for the women at church when their grandbabies were born. Her knitting bag went with her everywhere, green canvas with frayed straps and a silver zipper that stuck halfway shut. She kept it by the armchair in the den, just under the side table where she left her glasses. She left it open one afternoon while she was out studying at Jeannie's. I wasn't snooping, I swear I wasn't. I was looking for the TV remote and knocked the whole bag over. Yarn spilled out. Knitting needles clattered across the floor. And right there, nestled between a half-finished scarf and a tin of lemon drops, was a lighter. A silver butane lighter. I picked it up slowly. Heavy. Engraved. CBM. My stomach dropped. We don't smoke. Never have. And I don't know anyone in the family with those initials. That's when I knew. Something was happening. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I spent the rest of that afternoon sitting in the garage, pretending to organize my tools while my thoughts twisted like vines. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hands touching something, someone that wasn't me. I remembered her laugh from years ago, how it had dimmed. I remembered her saying, "I'll be back in a couple hours," every Thursday. And I remembered the neighbor across the street, Cal Morris. Calvin Benjamin Morris. 71. Widower. Church treasurer. Always had a fresh trim and tucked-in shirts. Always had a comment ready about his roses or the state of the country. Always waved to Lorna just a little too long when she walked past on her morning stroll. I couldn't prove anything. Not yet. But my gut was screaming. I bought a camera. One of those little motion-triggered ones you can hide in a fake rock or a flower pot. I set it up across the street behind our hydrangeas, angled just right to catch the front door of Cal's guest house, the one out back he claimed was just for storage. Lorna had been spending a lot of time at Jeannie's lately. But every time she left, she walked in the opposite direction. Right toward Cal's. I waited 3 days. Then I checked the camera. There she was. 9:47 a.m., Tuesday morning. Knocking on Cal's guesthouse door. He opened it. Smiled. Let her in. She didn't come out for over 2 hours. That night, I said nothing. We ate pork chops in silence. She knitted in her chair while I read the Herald. The weight of the truth sat like a stone in my gut. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Not yet. You see, I've learned something in all my years. Revenge, like tea, needs steeping. Lorna made lemon bars the next morning. I came into the kitchen and there she was, hair pinned back, apron on, zesting lemons like she hadn't just spent Tuesday morning in another man's guest house. Like she hadn't broken the vows we made in front of God and half the town. Her humming nearly made my skin crawl. "Morning," she said, without looking up. "Morning," I said back, my voice even. She passed me a plate like it was any other Wednesday. I took it, sat down at the table, bit into the lemon bar and almost choked on the bitterness. "You going to Jeannie's today?" I asked casually. "No, we moved it to Friday. I'm just running errands today." I nodded, pretending to scroll through my phone. I already had the camera footage saved to my laptop in the garage. I knew she was lying. But hearing it from her mouth, watching her lie with a smile, powdered sugar on her fingers, made something in me snap. Not into rage. Into ice. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to wait. That night I stayed out in the garage, organizing shelves that didn't need organizing. The garage had become my sanctuary, the last place in the house that still felt like mine. The photos, the folded flags from my time in the Navy, the smell of sawdust and oil. On the bench beside my tool chest, my laptop sat open. I watched the footage again. Lorna, smiling at the door, stepping inside without hesitation. Gone for 2 hours and 11 minutes. A few days later, same thing. Different outfit, same path, same man opening that door. And Cal? He didn't even bother hiding it. Walked out front the next morning whistling like he just won the lottery. Dressed better, smiling more. I'd known the man for 20 years and he hadn't grinned this much since the 2004 church raffle when he won a fishing boat. I started to think back. Way back. When did things actually start to shift? It was small, at first. Lorna began staying up later than me. Said she was reading scripture in the den. But when I walked in one night, she quickly shut the laptop and said, "Just devotional stuff." I didn't push. Why would I? Trust was built into our marriage like the foundation under this house. Then she stopped leaving notes in my lunch. She used to write things like "praying for you" or "love you always, Fiel." They were gone now, replaced with silent sandwiches and plain napkins. Her phone never used to leave the countertop. Now it was always in her pocket or under her pillow. The signs had been there. But when you've been with someone that long, you learn to give grace. You make excuses. You think, she's just tired. Stressed. Maybe going through something. But she wasn't going through something. She was choosing someone. I went through old photos that night. Printed ones, dusty from the drawer. Lorna in the garden. Lorna laughing at my brother's cookout. Lorna holding Ellie Parker's newborn at the hospital. I looked for signs, hints of the woman she used to be. Hints of when she'd started to change. But all I saw was a timeline. And at the end of it? That empty seat at church. The following Sunday, she didn't even pretend. "I'm staying home today," she said, flipping through a Better Homes magazine. "I've got a bit of a headache." I studied her face. Clear-eyed. Makeup on. Hair fixed. "You sure you don't want to come?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She shook her head. "God knows my heart. He sure does." I drove to church alone. The third row pew felt like it had a hole in it. Folks kept glancing at the seat beside me. Some whispered. I just nodded, sang the hymns, and kept my Bible open. I watched Cal from across the room. He didn't look at me once. He sat 2 rows back, dead center, like a man without guilt. But that was going to change. That night, I added a second camera. I waited until Lorna went to bed, then walked out to the edge of our yard, crossed into the woods that line Cal's property, and placed the camera behind the old birdhouse facing his guesthouse's side window. It was angled just right, not intrusive, but revealing. Enough to make out who came and went. Enough to see what they were doing, if the curtains weren't drawn. The next morning, I caught footage of Lorna stepping out around 9 a.m. and returning just after noon. Her hands full of something in a Tupperware container. She was cooking for him now. She hadn't cooked a real breakfast for me in 2 weeks. The following Tuesday, I stopped by the church office. Pastor Ray greeted me with a warm handshake. "Brother Franklin, good to see you. How's Lorna doing?" "Still not feeling great," I said. "She's been laying low." "Well, she's missed quite a few Sundays. I hope everything's okay." "Just a season," I said with a smile. But while I'm here, y'all still needing help for the Easter potluck? He lit up. You bet we are. We're doing the slideshow again this year, photos from all the families. Rachel's running it, but I'm sure she'd be glad to have help. Wouldn't mind pitching in, I said. Got a new laptop. Be happy to put it together. He clapped me on the back. Bless you. I'll have her send the photos your way. And just like that, the door was open. See, every Easter, First Baptist puts together a big ol' slideshow, family pictures, baptisms, potlucks, births, mission trips. It runs right before the meal, projected on the big screen behind the altar. Everybody watches it. Nobody skips it. And this year, it was going to be unforgettable. That night, Lorna came home later than usual. I was in the den, sipping tea, TV playing low. She walked in with a plastic bag and said, ran into Jeannie after study. She wanted me to pass this along, some of her chili. I looked up at her. The lie was clean. Rehearsed. I almost admired the gall. Jeannie said you didn't show up last week, I said, eyes fixed on her. She froze. What? She stopped me after church. Asked how you were feeling. Said she missed your help setting up. A beat, then another. Oh, well, I must have mixed up the dates. We rescheduled. I was at the library instead. Library. Tuesday. The same day she was walking out of Cal's house holding 2 coffee mugs. She was getting sloppy. And I was getting ready. By Thursday, I had 5 solid clips. 5 different days, 5 different outfits. In one, they stood close in the guesthouse kitchen. Too close. She touched his shoulder. He kissed her cheek. It was brief, but it was damning. I backed them up to a flash drive. Then I added them to the slideshow folder. Not right at the beginning. Not too obvious. But about 2/3 in right after the vacation photos and baby dedications. Tucked in with just enough subtlety that it would take a few seconds for folks to understand what they were seeing. And once they did? Well, the fallout would be biblical. The week before Easter, our town came alive like it always did. Tulips bloomed along the courthouse lawn, paper eggs were taped to shop windows, and the kids at First Baptist ran around the parking lot in dress shoes and clip-on ties, rehearsing for the children's choir. It was the kind of week that made you believe everything was still good and clean in the world. But I knew better. I watched my wife through a different lens now, not just as a woman I'd loved for 42 years, but as a stranger walking through our home with borrowed smiles and second-hand affection. The weight of what I knew had turned even her smallest gestures into performances. Each cup of coffee she set down felt like a guilt offering. Each "have a good day" sounded rehearsed. And I played my part too. I kissed her cheek. I passed the salt. I folded the laundry she no longer touched. Because sometimes, silence is sharper than shouting. And I was sharpening mine for Easter Sunday. The slideshow was coming together faster than I expected. Rachel from the church office sent over a digital folder full of baby dedications, community cleanup day photos, summer baptisms, even a few candids from last year's chili cook-off. Most were wholesome. Simple. Nothing out of place. But tucked near the end, sandwiched between Family Picnic 2023 and Youth Mission Trip, I had inserted the 5 video clips. Just 10 seconds each. No labels. No sound. Clip 1, Lorna stepping into Cal's guest house. Clip 2, him opening the door shirtless. Clip 3, her cooking at the guesthouse stove, laughing. Clip 4, him brushing her shoulder, her not pulling away. Clip 5, a long hug at sunset on his back porch. Nothing explicit. Nothing legally damning. Just the truth. And I knew that would be enough. The night before Easter, Lorna stayed up late, pacing the living room in her robe. Can't sleep? I asked from the doorway. She looked startled, like she didn't hear me come in. No, she said. Just thinking. About? She hesitated. Nothing, really. I watched her twist her wedding ring. A new habit. You nervous about the potluck? She smiled faintly. I guess. It's always a big turnout. I walked to the window and looked out at Cal's house. The lights were off. The place was quiet. She joined me a moment later. You think it'll go smoothly? She asked. Oh, I said, keeping my voice flat. I think it'll be one to remember. The morning of Easter, the air smelled like magnolias and fried ham. Lorna wore a lavender dress I hadn't seen in years. She took longer in the bathroom than usual, curling her hair, dabbing perfume on her wrists. She emerged radiant, looking every bit the Southern church wife. I wore my navy suit, the one I saved for weddings and funerals. We drove in silence. At the church, folks buzzed about with energy, pastel ties, floral dresses, casseroles in hand. The fellowship hall smelled like brown sugar, yeast rolls, and green bean casserole. I helped set up the folding chairs while Lorna floated from table to table like a butterfly with a secret. Cal arrived late. Alone. He gave me a nod across the room. I nodded back. Then I walked to the sound booth and loaded the slideshow. Pastor Ray called everyone to attention a little before noon. "Brothers and sisters," he said, beaming, "before we bless this meal, we want to take a moment to look back on a year of faith, family, and fellowship." The lights dimmed. And the screen lit up. The first few minutes passed like every other year, laughter at the baby photos, a few gasps at how tall some of the teens had gotten. The room hummed with warmth. Then came the mission trip photos. Then the chili cook-off. Then, silence. Clip 1, Lorna. Knocking at a door. Murmurs. Clip 2, Cal. No shirt. Smiling. A woman at the back dropped her fork. Clip 3, Lorna at the stove, stirring. Laughing. Voices rose. Whispers. Confusion. Clip 4, a hand on her back. Clip 5, the hug. The long, long hug. Then black. The screen went black. And Lorna fainted. She didn't crumple. She collapsed like a marionette with the strings cut. Her plate shattered on the tile, ham and deviled eggs scattered. I rushed forward with Pastor Ray and a few others, but it was Abby Dunn, the retired nurse, who got to her first. "She's breathing," Abby said. "Just shocked, is all." Shocked wasn't the half of it. Cal stood frozen near the punch bowl, color gone from his face. He tried to step back, but someone, I think it was Deacon Harold, blocked his path. Pastor Ray turned to me, eyes wide. What did we just see?" "Truth," I said simply. "Years' worth." They carried Lorna to the nursery room to lie down. I didn't follow. I stood in the center of the fellowship hall, surrounded by whispers and dropped jaws. "I didn't do this to punish her," I said aloud. "I did this so it wouldn't stay a secret." Rachel from the church office approached, shaking. "Did you know Cal is the treasurer?" "Sure did." She held out her phone. "You should see this." On her screen was an email, anonymous. It had been sent to the church's general inbox just that morning. Attached was a PDF. Line items. Withdrawals. Unusual purchases. An audit report. Thousands, tens of thousands, missing. Embezzled over the course of 2 years. Cal's name on every one of them. The hall erupted. Lorna's affair was no longer the main story. The church's money, God's money, had vanished, and the man responsible was standing 10 feet from the altar. Pastor Ray went pale. "We have to report this," he said. Someone called the sheriff. Cal tried to leave. He didn't make it past the parking lot. Back inside, I found my seat again, the third pew on the right. Still warm from the crowd. Still missing a body beside me. Lorna didn't speak to me that night. Didn't even come home. I heard later she went to her sister's in Georgia. She left a note on the kitchen table. "I don't know who I am anymore. I hope someday you can forgive me." I sat at that table for a long while, the note resting beneath my fingertips. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just breathed. Slow. Steady. In the weeks that followed, the church held emergency meetings. Cal was arrested for financial crimes. They said he skimmed from the building fund, the youth program, even the mission trip account. Pastor Ray gave a sermon titled, "What is Hidden Shall Be Brought into the Light." People stopped asking about Lorna. They talked about the money now. The betrayal. The image of Cal in cuffs, led through the parking lot in his Sunday best. But me? I kept showing up. Same pew. Same hymnal. Same handshake at the door. Because some things don't break. Some things bend. And some things rebuild. They say betrayal feels like a knife in the back. That's not true. It's slower than that. Quieter. It's finding her toothbrush still in the cup, even after she's gone. It's waking up and reaching for a body that's no longer there, and realizing the space beside you has been empty for longer than you ever admitted. Lorna never came back. After the Easter potluck, she packed 2 bags, left the note on the kitchen table, and drove down to her sister's in Bainbridge. The old sedan is still in her name, so I suppose that made it easier. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like evidence. Every drawer, every picture frame, every dent in the floor from a rocking chair she'd scooted too many times, it all told the story of a marriage that used to be. And now it was just quiet. Too quiet. The town didn't know what to do with me at first. In Wilkes Ferry, folks handle scandal the same way they handle a storm: board up the windows, keep your head down, and talk about it only in kitchens and whispers. But the Easter footage and what followed was too loud to stay quiet. They couldn't look away. The video clips spread like fire through every congregation in a 20-mile radius. Someone had screen recorded the potluck slideshow and posted it on a local Facebook group. "Affair exposed at church," the title read. The post got over 500 comments in 2 days. Some folks praised me, called it righteous, said it was about time people stopped hiding sin behind scripture. Others said I went too far, said I should have handled it like a Christian. A few women, mostly from the quilting circle, sent me sympathy pies. Lemon meringue, blueberry crumble, even a Jell-O salad I didn't touch. Each came with a note that read something like, "Thinking of you in this difficult season." But no one came right out and asked what I was going to do next. Because truth be told, I don't think I even knew. I still went to church every Sunday. That part of me hadn't changed. Couldn't change. I needed that pew. I needed the ritual. But now, I sat alone. Her seat stayed empty, like a warning. Like a wound. People stopped sitting beside me, at first. Out of respect. Or uncertainty. Or both. The third row became my island. I'd walk in, nod to the usher, take my seat, and listen to the choir sing hymns about mercy and restoration while my mind reeled with questions I didn't know how to ask out loud. How do you pray for someone who shattered you? How do you say grace over a meal made for two when you're eating alone? How do you worship next to the ghost of a marriage? One Sunday, Pastor Ray preached on the story of Joseph, how his brothers sold him into slavery, how he rose from the pit to the palace, and how he forgave the very men who betrayed him. He wept when he saw them again, the pastor said, his voice thick. He didn't shout. He didn't shame. He wept. Because real forgiveness breaks you, not them. I sat there and felt my throat tighten. Because I didn't want to weep. I wanted answers. I wanted why. About 3 weeks after Easter, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. The envelope was plain, the handwriting familiar. Inside was 2 pages, written in blue ink, with that same slow, careful cursive Lorna always used when she was nervous. Franklin, I don't know where to begin. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need to say this, I didn't mean for it to happen. But it did. And I let it. And that is mine to carry, not yours. I don't know when I stopped seeing you. I think part of me just went quiet. The routine swallowed us, and I mistook your steadiness for distance. I was wrong. I was selfish. And when Cal gave me attention, I leaned into it instead of stepping back. I told myself I was just lonely. But that's not an excuse. I made choices. And I betrayed a man who never deserved it. The worst part is, I don't even know if I loved him. I think I just wanted to feel seen again. But now I see what I broke trying to feel whole. I'm staying with Ruthie for now. Don't worry, I won't be coming back. I'm not here to beg for a second chance. Just for a second of understanding. You were always the better one between us. You were the faithful one. I see that now. I hope someday, you can set this burden down, even if I'm not the one who gets forgiven. Tell the church I'm sorry. Tell God, too. Lorna. I read it twice. Then again. And then I folded it back up, set it in the top drawer beside my pocket knife and old war medals, and walked outside. The wind was still. The sky too blue. And I didn't feel peace. I felt empty. That afternoon, I visited Pastor Ray. He was planting petunias outside the church office when I arrived. Took me 2 years to figure out what soil they like, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. But I think I've got it now. I handed him the letter. Let him read it without a word. When he finished, he looked up at me. You okay? I don't know, I said honestly. She's hurting. So am I. He nodded. Then he said something I wasn't ready for. You know, forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in, right? I frowned. It's about letting you out, he said. Out of the cage. The weight. The endless why. I looked down at my boots. Feels like if I forgive her, I'm saying what she did wasn't that bad. No, he said softly. You're just saying you won't let it own you forever. That night, I made dinner for one again. Same chair. Same plate. But when I said grace, I added a line I hadn't before. Lord, help me mean it when I say I'm letting go. I didn't feel lighter. But I felt something shift. Maybe that's what healing starts with, not a miracle, just a shift. The next day, I took down the second camera. I deleted the footage from my laptop. Not out of guilt. Out of completion. The war was over. There was nothing left to win. I'd already lost the woman. Already won the truth. And now I was rebuilding. I started filling her seat at church with other people. Invited my neighbor Dan to sit with me one Sunday. Then Ms. Carter from across the street. Then Rachel and her 2 boys after their dad left last fall. The pew wasn't just mine anymore. It was ours. It became a place of welcome. And little by little, that empty seat stopped being a symbol of what I lost. It became a sign of what I still had room for. May rolled in with thick air and slow afternoons. Wilkes-Barre settled back into its rhythm, or, at least, tried to. The Easter scandal still lingered in corners of conversation like smoke from a long-extinguished fire, but folks were beginning to speak of it less. More casseroles, fewer whispers. At church, Cal's absence was obvious. His name had been quietly removed from the bulletin. The treasurer duties passed to 2 deacons, and the church board was scrambling to get the finances back in order. They uncovered more than anyone expected. Almost $40,000, misrouted and reallocated over 3 years. And while everyone liked to say it's only money, it didn't feel like just money. It felt like betrayal with a checkbook. People around town had forgiven quicker than I thought they would, or maybe they just got tired of holding it. Folks like to say they're slow to judge, but I've seen how fast a room can go quiet when someone walks in who once knelt beside them at the altar and now has a scarlet letter burned between their shoulder blades. But Cal wasn't walking in anywhere anymore. Lorna, on the other hand, she did. It was the first Sunday of June. The sermon was on James 5 verse 16, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another, that you may be healed. I remember thinking that was fitting. I was sitting in our pew, still calling it that, even though it had been mine alone for nearly 2 months, when I felt it. That strange hush that falls over a crowd when someone unexpected arrives. I turned slightly. There she was. Hair shorter than before. Wearing a pale blue dress I'd never seen. She walked in like someone trying to make herself invisible but knowing she couldn't. She carried a thin Bible and a purse clutched too tightly in both hands. She didn't sit beside me. She sat 2 rows behind. The space between us felt heavier than the church walls themselves. Pastor Ray didn't pause, bless him. He kept preaching like the Holy Spirit himself had sent her in on cue. But I couldn't hear most of it. All I could think was, she's here. Not just in town. Not just at the store or Ruthie's porch or hiding out in shame. Here. In our church. In our story. Again. After the benediction, people milled about like usual. You'd think the fellowship hall had never hosted a scandal. Lorna stayed seated. Eyes forward. Still. I walked past her without stopping. I didn't know if she expected me to. I didn't know if I wanted to. But Rachel caught me by the punch table. She asked me if she could come, she whispered. Didn't want to make a scene. Just said she needed to sit somewhere God might still speak. I nodded. Did he? I asked without smiling. Rachel didn't answer. That afternoon, there was a knock at my front door. I opened it, and there she stood. The last time I'd seen her that close, she was collapsed on the fellowship hall floor while ham slices rolled across the tile. She looked better now. Stronger. Not happy, but whole, in some small way. Hi, she said. Hi. I don't want to stay long, she said. I wanted to apologize face to face. You already wrote. I know. But writing's easy. We stood there in silence. I didn't invite her in. She didn't ask. I've started counseling, she said. In Bainbridge. Weekly. I nodded. Not church counseling. Real therapy. Good, I said. And I'm staying at Ruthie's until the end of summer. I won't come back to church again unless you say it's okay. You don't need my permission, I replied. I'm not asking for it, she said. I'm asking for your peace. That word hung between us like smoke from a snuffed candle. Peace. That's all we ever want after a storm, isn't it? I didn't come to beg, she said. I know what I did. I didn't realize how much I was unraveling until you showed everyone the thread. I looked at her, then really looked. She didn't look like the woman from the slideshow clips. She looked like someone who had to sit inside her own mess for long enough that it started to burn. Why now? I asked. Because I realized I hadn't said sorry to the only person I really needed to. I nodded once. That's all, she said. And turned to leave. But just before she stepped off the porch, I spoke. I'm not ready to forgive you. She stopped. I figured, she said. But I am willing to try. She didn't turn around. She just stood there, 1 foot on the porch step, hands folded, shoulders shaking. Then she nodded. Once. And left. That week, I sat on the porch most evenings. Same chair. Same mug. But something about the wind felt different. I kept thinking about that sermon. Confess your sins to one another, that you may be healed. I realized maybe it wasn't about making things right. Maybe it was about letting things be broken, and still choosing to live anyway. Still choosing peace even when reconciliation isn't possible. At Wednesday's prayer meeting, Lorna's name came up during requests. Someone mentioned her by accident, then got awkwardly quiet. I pray she's finding healing, they said. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to add anything. Didn't need to defend or explain or correct, because she was. And so was I. In different ways. 2 days later, Pastor Ray called. "You got a minute?" he asked. "Sure. We're holding a special service in July. Not a full Sunday thing. Just a Friday night gathering. Testimonies. Stories of grace. We're calling it After the Ashes." "Nice title," I said. He paused. "We'd like you to speak." I blinked. "Not about what happened," he added quickly. "Not the footage. Not the scandal. Just, what God's taught you in the fire." I didn't answer right away. Because part of me still wanted to be done. Done talking. Done reliving. Done being that guy. But another part of me, the part that sat in that third row pew with no one beside him for 2 months, felt something different. Maybe a whisper. Maybe a push. "I'll do it," I said. "Thank you," he replied, relief in his voice. "That'll mean a lot to folks. And maybe, just maybe, it would mean something to me too." The fellowship hall had never been this full on a Friday. We weren't exactly a church known for nighttime events. Wednesday prayer meetings usually drew a dozen. The summer fish fry? Maybe 35 if the catfish was good. But tonight, for After the Ashes, every folding chair was filled. Pastor Ray stood at the front with his usual calm, mic in hand, welcoming folks and setting the tone. "No drama tonight," he said with a smile. "No judgment. Just truth, grace, and what God can do with a broken heart." I sat near the back, waiting for my name. There were 3 speakers ahead of me. One was a teenager who'd struggled with addiction. One was a widow learning to live again. The third was a couple that had almost divorced but found their way back after counseling. Each story pulled something out of the room. Tears, laughter, quiet sighs. Honest things. Then Pastor Ray cleared his throat. "Our next speaker," he said, "is a man most of you already know. He's a fixture in our community, someone who's shown us what it means to stand tall, even when the ground gives way. Franklin Moore, would you come up?" There was a pause. Then a wave of polite applause. I stood. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just stood. I made my way up the aisle, hands tucked into my blazer pockets, stomach doing somersaults. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't a confessional. It was the after. I took the mic and looked out at the crowd. Old friends. Former strangers. People who used to wave with both hands and now glanced away at the grocery store. Lorna sat near the back. I hadn't known if she'd come. But there she was. Dressed simple. Eyes fixed on me. No tears. No smirk. Just present. I took a breath. When a man's life falls apart, I began, it doesn't happen all at once. Not usually. Sometimes it's a crack in the wall you ignore. A squeak in the floor you learn to step around. A few chuckles. I nodded. That's how it was for me. I didn't know what I was missing until I was staring at an empty seat on Sunday. There was a shift in the room. They knew. They remembered. And now, I was naming it. "I won't rehash what happened," I said. "The details don't matter anymore. What matters is what came after." When the curtain dropped, when the slideshow ended, and the plates were all broken on the fellowship hall floor, I swallowed. I didn't feel angry, not at first. I felt lost. Like I'd spent decades building something only to wake up and find I'd been standing in the ruins the whole time. I glanced at Lorna. She didn't blink. "But here's the strange thing," I said. "The ruins taught me something the roof never could." I let that sit. I learned that forgiveness isn't something you feel. It's something you practice. Like a daily routine. Like prayer. Like showing up. A few heads nodded. "And forgiveness doesn't mean you forget," I continued. "It means you stop waiting for the past to apologize. It means you look at the broken pieces and say, all right, let's see what can be built now." The mic trembled slightly in my hand, but my voice held. "I used to think strength was keeping it together," I said. "Turns out, it's letting yourself fall apart, then getting up anyway. It's choosing not to let the wound tell the story." I scanned the room again. Saw the faces soften. Saw some lowered eyes. Most of you know what happened. Some of you judged me. Some of you applauded me. But tonight, I don't want either. I paused. I just want you to know I'm still here. Still standing. Still choosing grace even when it doesn't feel like justice. I looked at Lorna one last time. And I meant it. Especially then. The applause was soft but genuine. I handed the mic back and returned to my seat. Rachel from the church office squeezed my shoulder as I passed. Pastor Ray looked at me like a man seeing someone he used to underestimate in a whole new light. But the best part? When I sat down, someone slid into the seat beside me. Dan. My neighbor. No words. Just presence. And that was enough. The rest of the night was a blur. Stories, songs, a closing prayer. By the time I walked out into the muggy evening, the parking lot was nearly empty. Crickets hummed. Fireflies flickered across the grass. Then I heard footsteps. Turned. Lorna was standing by her car. She hesitated, then walked over. "You meant that?" she asked softly. I nodded. She looked down. "I'm not the same person." "Neither am I," I said. She looked up. "I'm not asking to come home. I know. But if I ever needed to talk." I smiled gently. "Then you know where to find me." She smiled back. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel sad. It felt settled. The summer passed in a slow warmth. Cal pled guilty. Took a deal. Church recovered faster than expected. They even raised money for a new youth center named it after Sister Eleanor, the 91-year-old who donated her backyard. I kept going to church. Same pew. Sometimes with Dan beside me. Sometimes with Rachel's boys. And sometimes, just sometimes, with Lorna 2 rows behind. She never asked for her seat back. I never offered it. But we both understood. That space between us? It wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. One Sunday in September, Pastor Ray pulled me aside. "Funny thing," he said. "I was updating the church directory. Realized something." "What's that?" "You never left. Even when everything else did." I chuckled. "Habit, I guess." He shook his head. "No. That's faith." Back at home, I sat on the porch. Sun dipping low. Coffee in hand. A soft breeze lifted the flag on my mailbox. And I thought, not for the first time. Even after the fire, something always grows. The end.
Subscribe to the channel